Hi guys, so today I'm going to be reading the next part of Adolphus tips. I'm in a different layout because there's a lot of noise in my room from my computer, and I can't do anything about that. And I'm wearing weird headphones because my headphones, one of the ears don't work, so I can't really hear very well. Okay, so if you want to watch the last part of the video, you can just click on the link there, and if you want to watch from the first episode, you can just click here. We're going through this book quite quickly, actually. Sorry, for the third episode. Okay. I think the last thing we read was about the boy's dad. So, right. Monday, November the 1st, 1943. Pinch, punch. First day of the month. Slap and kick for being so quick. Punch in the eye for being so sly. Barry kept saying it to me every time he saw me. He was really annoying. In the end, I shouted at him and hurt his feelings. I know I shouldn't have. He was only trying to be friendly. He didn't cry, but he nearly did. But tonight I feel worse about everything I said. Something much worse. But tonight I feel worse about something else. Something much worse. Ever since Bloomers came, I've been giving her a hard time. We all have, but me most of all. I'm really good at giving people a hard time. I'm really good at giving people a hard time when I want to. I cheeked her when she first came back because I didn't like her and she got ratty and punished me. So I cheeked her again and she punished me again, and on it went. And after that I could never get on with her at all. I've been mean to her ever since. I've known her, and now this has happened. The vicar came into school today and told us he'd be teaching us for the morning because Mrs. Blumfield wasn't feeling very well. She wasn't ill, so much as sad, he said. Sad because she had just heard the news that her husband, who was in the merchant navy, had been lost at sea in the Atlantic. His ship had been torpedoed. They'd picked up a few survivors, but Mrs. Blumfield's husband wasn't one of them. The vicar told us that when she came back into school we had to be very good and kind, so as not to upset her. Then he said we should close our eyes and hold our hands together and pray for her. I did pray for her too, but I also prayed for myself because I don't want God to have his own back on me for all the horrible things I've said and thought about her. I prayed for my dad too, that God wouldn't make him die in the desert just because I'd been mean to Mrs. Blumfield. That I hadn't meant it when I had said I wanted him to die, because He threw in the kittens. He drowned the kittens. I've never prayed so hard in my life. Usually my mind wanders when I'm supposed to be praying, but it didn't today. After lunch, Mrs. Blomfield came into school. She had no lipstick on. She looked so pale and cold. She was trembling a little too. We left the letter for her. I think I missed a page. We left a letter for her on her desk, which we had all signed to say how sorry we all were about her husband. She looked very calm, as if she was in a daze. She wasn't crying or anything, not until she read our letter. Then she tried to smile at us through her tears and said it was very thoughtful of us, but she wasn't, because it was the vicar's idea. But we didn't tell her that. We all went around whispering and being extra good and quiet all day. I feel so bad I feel so bad for her now, because she's all alone. I won't call her Bloomers ever again. I don't think anyone will. Monday, November the 8th, 1943. Ever since Mrs. Blomfield's husband was killed, I've been worrying a lot about Dad. I didn't before, but I am now. All the time. I keep thinking of him lying in the desert in the sand of Africa. I try not to, but the picture of him lying there keeps coming into my head. And it's silly, I know it is, because I got a letter from him only yesterday, at last, and he's fine. His letter takes forever to come. This one was dated 2 months ago. He never said anything about me being cross. In fact, he sent his love to Tips. Dad says it's not hot out in the desert. You could almost fry an egg on the bonnet of his Jeep. He says he longs for a few days of good old Devon, drizzle and mud. He really misses mud. How can you miss mud? We're all sick of mud. It's been raining here for days now. Mizzly, drizzly, horrible rain. Today it was blowing in from the sea, so I was wet through by the time I got home from school. Grandfather came in later. He'd been drinking a bit, but then he always drinks a bit when he goes to market, just to keep the cold out, he says. He sat down in front of the stove and put his feet in the bottom oven to warm up. Mum hates him doing it, but he does it all the same. He's got holes in his socks too. He always has. There's hundreds of gum-chewing Yanks everywhere in town, he said. Like flies on a ruddy cowpat. I like it when Grandfather talks like that. He got a dirty look from Mum, but he didn't mind. He just gave me a big wink and a wicked grin and went on talking. He said he was sure something's going on. There are fuel dumps everywhere you look. Tents going up all over the place. Tanks and lorries parked everywhere. It's something big, he said, I'm telling you. Still raining out there. It's lashing the window panes as I'm writing, and the whole house is creaking and shaking, almost as if it's getting ready to take off and fly out over the sea. I can hear the cows lowing in the barn. They're scared. Tips is frightened silly too. She wants a ride. She wants to hide. She keeps jogging my writing. She's trying to push her head deeper and deeper into my armpit. I'm not frightened. I like storms. I like it when the sea comes thundering in and the wind blows so hard that it takes my breath away. Mrs. Blumfield said something this morning that took my breath away too. That Daisy Simmons, Ned's little sister, is always asking questions when she shouldn't, and today she put her hand up and asked Mrs. Blumfield if she was a mummy. Just like that. Mrs. Blumfield didn't seem to mind at all. She thought for a bit and then said that she would never have any children of her own because she didn't need them. She had all of us instead. We were her family now. And she had her cats, which she loved. I didn't know she had cats. I was watching her when she said it, and you could tell, and you could see she really did love them. I was so wrong about her. She likes cats, so she must be nice. I'm going to sleep now, and I'm not going to think of Dad lying out in the desert. I'm going to think of Mrs. Blumfield at home with her cats instead. I went to shut the window and I saw a barn owl flying across the farmyard, white and silent in the darkness. There one moment, gone the next. A ghost owl. He's screeching now. They screech, they don't to-it-to-woo. That word looks really funny when you write it down. But owls don't have to write it down, do they? They just have to hoot it, or to-it-to-woo it. Saturday, November the 13th, 1943. Today was a day that will change my life forever. Grandfather was right when he said something was up, and it is something big too, something very big. I have to keep pinching myself to believe it's true, that it's really going to happen. Yesterday was just like any other day. Rain, school, long divisions, spelling test, Barry picking his nose, Barry smiling at me from across the classroom with his big round eyes. I just wish he wouldn't smile at me. He's always so smiley. Then today it happened. I knew all day there was going to be some kind of meeting in the church in the evening. That someone from every house had to go, and it was important. I knew that because Mum and Grandfather were arguing about it over breakfast before I went to school. Grandfather was being a grumpy old goat. He's been getting crotchety a lot just lately. Mum says it's because of his rheumatism. It gets worse in damp weather. He keeps saying it had too much to do. He kept saying he had too much to do on the farm to be bothered with meetings and such. And besides, he said, women were better at talking because they did more of it. Of course, that made Mum really mad. So they had a fair old ding-dong about it. Anyway, in the end, Mum gave in and said she'd go, and asked me to go along with her for company. I didn't want to go, but now I'm glad I did, really glad. The place was packed out. There was standing room only by the time we got there. Then this big Lord something or other got up and started talking. I didn't pay much attention at first, because he had this droning on hoity-toity, I like that word, sort of voice that almost put me to sleep. But suddenly I felt a strange stillness and silence all around me. It was almost as if everyone had stopped breathing. Everyone was listening. So I listened too. I can't remember his exact words, but I think it went something like this. I know it's asking a lot of you, the bigwig was saying, but I promise we wouldn't be asking you if we didn't have to. If it wasn't absolutely necessary. They'll be needing the beach at Slapton Sands and the whole area behind it, including this village. They need it because they have to practice landings from the sea for the invasion of France when it comes. That's all I can tell you. Everything else is top secret. No point in asking me anything about it, because I don't know any more than you. What I do know is that you have 7 weeks from today to move out. Lock, stock and barrel. And I mean that. You have to take everything with you. Furniture, food, coal, all your animals, farm machinery, fuel, and all fodder and crops that can be carried. There's a picture of the church room where everyone is sitting down with the big wig. Doesn't really have a big wig though. Nothing you value must be left behind. After the 7 weeks is up, no one will be allowed back, and I mean no one. There'll be barbed wire, perimeter fence, and guards everywhere to keep you out. Besides which, it will be dangerous. There'll be live firing going on, real shells, real bullets. I know it's hard, but don't imagine it's just Slapton. Torcross, East Allington, Stokeham, Sherford, Clington, Street, Blackerton. 3,000 people have to go move out. 750 families. 30,000 acres of land have got to be cleared in 7 weeks. Some people tried to stand up and ask questions, but it was no use. He just waved them down. I've told you, it's no good asking me the whys and wherefores. All I know is what I've told you. They need it for the war effort, for training purposes. That's all you need to know. Yes, but for how long? Asked the vicar from the back of the hall. About 6 months, 9 months, maybe longer. We can't be sure. And don't worry, We'll make sure everyone has a place to live, and of course, there'll be proper compensation paid to everyone, to all the farms and businesses, for any loss or damage. And I have to be honest with you there. I have to warn you that there will be damage. Lots of it. You could have heard a pin drop. I was expecting lots of protests and questions, but everyone seemed to be struck dumb. I looked up at Mum. She was straining ahead of her. She was staring ahead of her, her mouth half open, her face pale. All the way home, in the dark, I kept asking her questions. But she would never say a word until we reached the farmyard. "It'll kill him," she whispered. "Your grandfather, it'll kill him." Once back home, she came straight out with it. Grandfather was in his chair, warming his toes in the oven as usual. "We've got to clear out," she said. And she told him the whole thing. Grandfather was silent for a moment or two. Then he just said, "They'll have to carry me out first. I was born here and I'll die here. I'm not moving. Not for they ruddy Yanks, not for no one." Mum's still downstairs with him, trying to persuade him, but he won't listen. I know he won't. Grandfather doesn't say all that much. But what he says, he means. What he says, he sticks to. Tips has jumped on my bed and walked all over my diary with her muddy paws. She's lucky I love her as much as I do. This little paw prints. They've accepted. I told you that I was recording. Yes, I did. I came in and I said I'm recording because there's too much noise in my room. Do you know I've got a good helmet? There we are. Tuesday, November the 16th, 1943. At school in the village, no matter where you go or whoever you meet, it's all anyone talks about, the evacuation. It's like this sudden curse has come down on us all. No one smiles, no one's the same. There's been a thick fog over since we were told. It hangs all around us. It tries to come in at the windows. It makes me wonder if it'll ever go away, if we'll ever see the sun again. I've changed my mind completely about Barry. That skunkhead, Bob Bolan, came up to me at playtime and started on about grandfather, just because he's the only one in the village refusing to go. He said he was a stupid old duffer. He said he should be sent away to the lunatic asylum and locked up. Maisie was there with me, and she never stood up for me, and it should. And I thought she was supposed to be my best friend. Well, she's not anymore. No one stood up for me, so I had to stand up for myself. I pushed Skunkhead. I won't call him Bob anymore because Skunkhead suits him better. Skunkhead pushed me and I fell over and grazed my elbow. I was sitting there, picking the grit out of my skin and trying not to let them see I was crying, when Barry came up. The next thing I know, he's got Skunkhead on the ground and he's punching him. Mrs. Blomfield had to pull him off, but not before Skunkhead got a bleeding nose, which served him right. As she took them both back into school, Barry looked over his shoulder and smiled. I never got a chance to say thank you, but I will. If only he'd stop picking his nose and smiling at me, I think I could really like him a lot. But I'm not doing kissing with him. Some people have started moving their things out already. This morning I saw Maisie's dad going up the road from the cartload of beds and chairs, cupboards, tea chests and all sorts. Maisie was sitting on the top and waved at me. I'm sorry about the noise in the background. She's my friend again, but not my best friend. I think Barry's my best friend now because I know I can really trust him. Then I saw Maisie Langley driving off in the car with lots of cases and trunks strapped on top. She had Jimbo on her lap. Her horrible Jack Russell dog who chases Tips up trees whenever he sees her. Mum told me that Miss Langley is off to stay with a cousin up in Scotland, hundreds of miles away. I've just told Tips and suddenly he's purring very happily. It's a good riddance purr, I think. A lot of people are going to stay with relatives and we could not accept that grandfather won't hear of it. Uncle George farms only a couple of miles away, just beyond where the wire fence will be. They're beginning to put it up already, he said. He said that family, and he'd be only too happy to help us out. I heard him telling grandfather we could take our milking cows up to his place, all our sheep, all the farm machinery, Dad's Fordson tractor, everything. It'll be a tight squeeze, Uncle George said, but we could manage. Grandfather won't listen, he won't leave, and that's that. Oh, I've got my picture. It's a person with a dog on the lap. I'm going to have to stop there. I want to carry on reading. Oops. Well, I think we are a third through the book, so that means there should just be another 6 episodes, which isn't that much. Hopefully this will be up on time, unlike last week. Bye. Hi fellow YouTuber, so today I'm going to be telling you what ASMR is and what you can do to feel the sensation of ASMR, which may sound a bit strange right now, but hopefully by the end of this video you'll completely understand the whole concept of it. If you're watching this video, it's either just because you're visiting my channel and it started playing,